Hey guys, Zaman
And Christina
from Our Rich Journey. So inflation has been all over the US news lately. In fact, year over year, inflation has gone up over 6% in America. And so recently we thought, well, what is the inflation rate in Portugal? Because this is where we live and this is where we have been for the past 2 years. And we recently checked the inflation rate here, and it was only at 1.8% over the past year. And that did not surprise us because since we've been in Portugal, we have noticed one thing about the prices. They have been consistent. Now, recently, we went back to the US, and when we got there, we were in complete sticker shock. Everything seemed to be twice as expensive as it was before we left. And so on today's video, what we want to do is we want to do some price comparisons. We went to the grocery store here in Portugal and we grabbed some of the typical groceries that we usually bought when we lived in the US. And on today's video, we are going to compare prices. The price of everyday grocery goods here in Portugal to the price of everyday grocery goods in our old home city of Oakland, California.
So I think this price comparison is going to be so interesting because a lot of people are asking us about inflation here in Portugal. And like Aman said, Portugal's inflation rate year over year was only 1.8%. But if you compare that to Europe as a whole, the inflation rate was 4.1%. So Portugal has been very, very low. In fact, it's really hard for us to notice the price difference from this year compared to last year.
Okay, so I can't wait to get into these prices. I can't wait to take you guys along with us to the grocery store. But before we do that, I want to talk very quickly about how important it is to keep a gauge of inflation, especially if you are retiring, if you're retiring early. Inflation could be the silent killer of your retirement. So when Christina and I were taking into account inflation, we do two things. One, we invest in the stock market. And when you invest in the stock market and inflation is going up, it is a great hedge against inflation. Investing in the stock market and investing in real estate. So fortunately for us, as inflation has gone up around the world, so has our portfolio. In fact, our portfolios are beating inflation by a mile. Now, the other thing that really worked out for us is that we chose to retire here in Portugal, where inflation has historically been very low. And so these are two great things that we have going for ourselves as early retirees. But it's something that you should keep in mind when you are picking your destination to retire to or retire early to. Take a look at the historical inflation rate for whatever country that may be. And so if it's the US, if inflation keeps up at this rate, you must have a strategy in order to hedge against inflation. Now, there's one caveat that we need to make because we know you guys are going to be mentioning this in the comments. We know that it is more expensive to live in Oakland, California than it is to live here on the Silver Coast of Portugal. What we are emphasizing by talking about these prices is the fact that year over year, prices have shot up in the US. And so we're doing this to illustrate just how big of a difference the prices are between Oakland, California, the US, versus the Silver Coast of Portugal.
So in other words, before, even a year ago, the difference between Portugal and Oakland was sizable. But now we're focusing on after inflation, after this huge amount of inflation has occurred, the difference is even more sizable. Okay, so let's get into our favorite part of this video, which is price comparison. But to give you a little bit of a background, we live here in the Silver Coast of Portugal. So we used a grocery store called Pingo Doce, which is actually very popular. It's a chain grocery store throughout Portugal. And we did our pricing comparison from that store. And then we compared it to the neighborhood grocery store that we used to go to when we lived in Oakland, California. Now, Oakland, California compared to Portugal, they have different conversions. So for example, in Oakland, they may weigh something by pound. Here it would be kilograms. Of course, here we use euro, and in the States they use dollars. So we made those conversions so that it's comparable across the board. So we're going to be comparing dollar to dollar and something like pound to pound or ounce to ounce or whatever it is. We're keeping it even across the board so you can really see the difference between the prices here in Portugal compared to the prices in Oakland, California.
So let's hop in the car and let's drive to our local grocery store, Pingo Doce. Now, Pingo Doce is just like any other American grocery store. And this is one of the questions that we get often. What are the grocery stores like in Portugal? What are the food selections like? If you have it in the US, you also have it here in Portugal. It just has a different name. But we are able to get the same types of groceries that we got in Oakland here in Portugal.
Now, one of the things I would say is different though, is that usually the grocery stores here in Portugal are much smaller. In the United States, they can have really huge grocery stores. That is not the case here in Portugal. And also something that I think is very different here in Portugal compared to the United States are the sizes are smaller. And you'll see that when we compare, for example, the milk sizes. But that's something I think that is different here in Portugal compared to the United States.
And really what attributes to the size difference is here in Portugal, people tend to go to the grocery store more often, as opposed to the people in the US that do these large grocery hauls maybe once or twice a month. They go into Costco, they probably fill up $400 worth of stuff into their basket, and then they don't go back for another month. But here in Portugal, people are going to the grocery store maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And I think this is a wonderful thing personally because they tend to get vegetables and fruits that are much fresher because they're not buying those giant freezer brand chicken breasts or whatever the case that Costco sells. Here, they're getting fresh cuts of meat every other day. So our first stop in the grocery store was to get some chicken. And the chicken that we bought were chicken breasts. Now the chicken breasts are $2.95 a pound. I feel like I'm on The Price is Right
I was thinking
holding
that
this
too.
chicken. But the chicken is $2.95 a pound at our local store here.
And to compare that, in the Safeway at Oakland, it is $8.49 a pound for a chicken breast. Again, in Portugal, it's only $2.95 a pound.
Now that is a huge price difference. It's almost 3 times more in Oakland as it is here on the Silver Coast of Portugal. So our next stop was to get some eggs. Now, Christina and I love brown eggs. In fact, we've been eating brown organic eggs for so long that when we eat the white ones that aren't organic, we can taste it. And it just doesn't taste as good. But these eggs were, how much were they?
$1.98.
These were $1.98 for a dozen. Now compare this to a dozen eggs in Oakland. The Oakland eggs are $5.99 for the same dozen.
So 12 eggs here compared to 12 eggs in California, Oakland, California, you are going to be paying 3 times more in California. But this is the biggest difference in price.
Oh my goodness,
that
yes,
we noticed.
Yes.
Okay, so here is the equivalent of a little more than 6 pounds of red potatoes in Portugal. Now in Portugal, these cost 47 cents a pound. In Oakland, it is $2.99 a pound. That's almost 6.5 times more for the potatoes in Oakland compared to the potatoes here.
That is a huge price difference in how much it's gonna cost you to make potato salad here as opposed to the potato salad in Oakland. Now, I have to give the credit to Oakland with the best potato salad because I have not been able to find good potato salad here. But the price difference is astronomical. Almost 6 times more expensive for potatoes in Oakland as compared to here on the Silver Coast of Portugal. Okay, so the next thing we want to compare, and this has actually gotten a lot of talk in the US media about how expensive bacon has gotten. For some reason, bacon in the US, the prices have just skyrocketed. But here in Portugal, the cost of bacon is 24 cents an ounce compared to Oakland, which is
84 cents.
Which is 84 cents an ounce. So that's 3.5 times more to get bacon in the US than it is here in Portugal.
So let's move on to bananas.
I'm gonna have one of these right now.
Okay, so we do eat bananas pretty much daily. You put it in your oats every single day.
Yes.
So in Portugal, the bananas cost 43 cents a pound. In Oakland, it's 89 cents a pound. So in Oakland, it's about 2 times more expensive to buy bananas there compared to the bananas here. So let's move on to milk. Now this is really interesting. I forgot to mention a different thing about Portugal compared to the United States when it comes to milk. All of their milk comes in similar containers to this, and it's not refrigerated. If you go to the United States, the milk is always in the refrigerated aisle, but here in Portugal, it is not refrigerated, and it comes in these types of containers.
That is actually the biggest size milk you can get.
Yes, this is, I believe
it's 2 liters.
No, it's 1 liter.
It's 1 liter.
It's 1 liter. So it's about a quarter of the amount that's typically sold in the United States, which is 1 gallon. So this milk here with the conversion is equivalent to about $3.36 per gallon. If you buy a gallon of milk in Oakland, it costs $5.79. That's about 1.5 times more in Oakland compared to Portugal.
Next up is butter. Mo better butter. And this is the butter with salt, but not too much salt.
Okay, all right. So this container of butter costs $1.69. If you convert it to ounces, it's about 19 cents per ounce.
So in Oakland, this same butter is 37 cents an ounce. So it's about 2 times more expensive in Oakland to butter your popcorn.
So next we have, this is a big one, is olive oil. Now, I remember shopping in the States. I felt like olive oil, for some reason, was always really, really expensive in the stores. And then when we lived in Spain and even here in Portugal, I felt like the price of olive oil was so much more affordable here.
It was so inexpensive. I almost felt like we had to load up on the olive oil. It was like, wow, this is a deal.
Yeah. So this big container here is 2 liters, and it is $10.74 for these 2 liters. Now we converted it to 1.5 liters because we did a comparison to another 1.5 liters of olive oil in Oakland. And so 1.5 liters of olive oil here in Portugal would be equivalent to $8.05. In Oakland, it was $17.99.
So the olive oil in Oakland is 2.5 times more expensive than it is here in Portugal. So next up is spaghetti. Now we decided to compare the store brand spaghetti of Pingo Doce to the store brand of Safeway. And at Pingo Doce, it's 74 cents per bag, but in Oakland, it's $1.25 per bag.
So the Pingo Doce bag is slightly larger. So when we did the conversion, it was about 2 times more expensive in Oakland to buy spaghetti, the store brand spaghetti, compared to store brand spaghetti here in Portugal. So we have 2 more things to compare, which is coffee and a loaf of bread. Now we saved these things for the end because we actually found out as we were doing our comparisons, we were looking online, that these were the most comparable in price compared to the prices in Oakland, California. So we are gonna start off with the coffee price, which is a coffee Starbucks brand, the K-Cups. And these here we bought in Portugal. It is a 6-pack. And the 6-pack in Portugal is equivalent to $6.10. Now we were looking online for the equivalent in Oakland, and we found a 10-pack of Starbucks coffee for $6.99. Now we did notice that the Oakland price is on sale, but nevertheless they are very similar in price. So you could pretty much buy the equivalent Starbucks coffee in Oakland for the same amount of money. Our final and last thing that we bought at the grocery store, which is bread. This is a loaf of Oro wheat bread, but it's an American company, and we think it's an American company. But here, when we bought this loaf of bread, it was $2.71. And if you go to the grocery store in Oakland, we saw it priced at $2.99. Now, again, in Oakland, the price was on sale, but even with the sale, it's like I said, if you go and purchase bread right now in that store, it's very similar in pricing.
So run, don't walk to purchase your bread before prices go up. Okay, so we have had a lot of fun doing this price comparison, taking you guys shopping with us, but the point of it all is to just give you guys more food for thought when it comes to planning your financial independence journey and possibly retiring early. Whether or not it's to Portugal or staying in the US somewhere or anywhere else in the world, inflation will play a significant role in how you calculate your FIRE number and how you invest for financial independence. It is such an important piece to get right. And we know that the world is experiencing some uncertainty, so inflation is a little out of control. But it just goes to show, when you put your plan together, you must have these types of contingencies in place by having a diversified portfolio and having multiple backup plans. That's certainly something Christina and I put in place when we developed our financial independence plan. And so if you like this video, if you want to see more videos of us shopping and hanging out in Portugal, let us know in the comments below. But as usual, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.